Today is another day and it starts another video on the 1933 Dodge 5-window coupe. And the client was here yesterday, like I spoke of, that the client would be showing up so we can go over some things on the car. And Puss in Boots is now giving her inspection that she comes on over here. She's just about at my feet. She's changing her mind because the thing is, my Power Play Garage, the advertisement for YouTube, started making some noises as flicking or either that the level hanging. But nevertheless, I'm going to point out some things that is going to be getting changed and just show the progress from yesterday. I didn't film anything yesterday about the car because all I was doing was sanding and then going over some key points with the client. So today, hopefully I have a lot more sanded and get it ready so that I could take the cab off the frame. So I'm going to show you some of the things that were discussed, and one of the little, you might be able to tell that the hood has been sanded. I'll have, once I go to prime those areas that I had to fix on the side and add on the side, I will have to go over these other areas on the hood because they were flaking and rusting. And I even tried to block it somewhat, hopefully all flat, because it wasn't perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was, and it's kind of why you see that little dark spot, because it was kind of a high point. And these areas here will have to be primed up as well. So one of the things that we're adding to the car is power steering, and that's a manual box. Basically, it is set up for this application of this front end. And as you can see, it's, you want to call it level, and so is the pitman arm, and the shaft, the steering shaft, has two universals, which there isn't much of an angle once that part of it goes up to the steering column. So the new one, it's a much bigger one, a lot bigger one, and it's in that bottom box right over there on the outside of the collection. And I'm going to have to fabricate a setup that would mount that steering box to this frame and still be able to use that pitman arm because of how straight it is. And hopefully, once that happens, that pitman arm with the splines will match. And hopefully we'll even be able to use the nut, because that new steering box didn't come with even a nut, which I found cheap, especially for an expensive steering box. The one that I changed over to this Chevy here came with the lock washer, a thick one, and a thick nut to go over it. So I don't know why that one did not show up with one, but hopefully it'll fit. If not, then I will have to go get one so that this way we can finish that. So I figured out, in order for me to safely be able to take this cab off the frame, and definitely after the cab is painted and put back together, that I'm going to have to disassemble, which I planned on anyway after it's all sanded, each section, the front fender, the running boards, and then the rear quarter, because those parts that I'm pointing to sit on top of the frame, and then the cab sits on top of that. So I can't get one of the lifts under it to lift it up and, you know, roll the frame out from underneath it. I have another equipment to where I can run some straps, but going to put it back on will not work out very well. So that being said, when I go to put it back on, it would mark it, even with soft strap, and even though the machine would have no problem lifting it and then placing it back, but it would just be a problem with messing up the paint. So I figured out that I'm just going to have to lift up the cab basically pretty much right where it's at, the same way I lifted it when I had to repair that corner right there, and then slip the pieces out from underneath there and go from there, because that's pretty much the only way I'm going to be able to safely remove and then replace without messing anything up. So I'm going to continue on sanding and prepping, and once the nose, I'm concentrating on the nose so that I could disassemble it, and get it out of the way. And these are a little bit more time consuming because I have to prep and sand the underneath of the hood, because you will see it once the client, flips it up or whatever. So it'll have to be painted the same way as the rest of the car. And that's pretty much that. So I wanted to start the video off showing the progress, which might not seem a lot, but all the prep sanding and all the little nooks and crannies and the jams, it takes a lot of time because it's all little work. It's not flat work like this, where I first took the DA over it, and then I took a block over it and flattened it out. So I'm going to get back to work and hopefully be able to finish this up, and once I start taking it apart, I'll chime back in and show you the progress. So until then, stand by. I'm back, and I'm going to show you what I've done so far, and then I got a little tip for you if you ever have to deal with a cable setup like this one, and I'll show you where it goes. So in the meantime, you can see that the front end is off as far as the hood is right there. I got to finish sanding the underneath. The best way to do it is off the car. I definitely finished and prepping the nose piece there where the grill goes. Got it ready for areas that have to be primed. And I took the brake cylinder, master cylinder, off. It's a good thing we're changing it, because when I took it off, the brake fluid actually came out of the back end, and that means that the thing is leaking. So we can't have that, no leaking. And then I had to remove the two cable combinations. One was for the throttle, the foot throttle, and the other one is for the choke. Well, the choke, whatever, wasn't in the way. Actually, they have the cable running up and underneath this fiberglass piece, and then goes into the dash from the old existing firewall. Now, in order to get this cable set up to come out, you had to remove it from the inside as far as disconnected from the pedal. Then because of this whole mess right here, all these fittings will not go through the hole that they had drilled here. So the only way you can do it is that you disconnect the part that actually connects to the linkage on the carburetor, and you obviously came off the carburetor, and then you disconnect the Allen screw that holds the cable in and slide it through the jacket of the system. So once you do that, you really want to be able to not lose anything, and I like to put stuff kind of back together. So I found the best way, so that because of the way the cable's made, hopefully you can see it. This is the other end that attaches to the foot pedal, and this is the opposite end, 1 Allen screw hole. So you know, these types of wired cables, when you do anything to them, they kind of fringe out. So if anything is sticking out, you can kind of grind it off. But then to get it back in the little hole that it came out of, I find the best way to do that is you get 2 different size drill bits. And depending on the size of where it's going back in there, what you're going to do is create a funnel effect. So you'll take the bigger drill bit first, not bigger than the unit itself, and you'll just go in there a little bit to create that little bit of a cone. Then you grab a much smaller drill bit, not too small, obviously, because you're not trying to make the hole bigger for the cable, and then you do a little bit more in there, and that gives it a nice funnel-like, so that you could take the cable, like I did, and place it back in there. And I just snugged up the Allen screw part of it just so that I don't lose it. So there's my tip. It works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. I find that it does help. But that's that on that part of it. And I'll put that back in the car. And then I'm going to finish prepping the rest of the firewall. I was told that the hood latches came in. And we're losing power because we got a thunderstorm going on out there. It's a good thing that the camera doesn't work off of the current. But I'm sure it'll come back on. So we're going to be getting them tomorrow Saturday, but I will receive them at least so that Monday I'm going to have to put it back together. I'm going to have to put the hood back on here, the hood bars back on, and then once all that's in place, then I'll be able to see how I'm going to put those hood latches on and make the appropriate holes and fitting, what have you, so that once I go to paint it, at least everything, the fresh holes will get paint in them. Even though this is fiberglass, I'm not going to worry about that as far as rusting. But on the hood, I got to be concerned. And if I add the latches over here, which I probably will because we're getting 4 of them, same thing, metal, want to make sure it hooks up nice. And as you can see, the power came back on. So I'm moving along on it, progressing pretty good. I got the front parts where I'll take it off the stand. I took care of prepping the stress marks. This side here, which would be left side, had a lot more going on over here. This spot was the source of where it would spread. And I'm going to reassure on the back side that hopefully does not happen again. And like I said, hopefully. This side, a lot less, but getting it down to the point of where it originated from. And I will add like a flex primer to these areas so that hopefully it doesn't happen again. I don't believe it will, because by adding them and letting the fenders relax where they belong, and a part of it does hit the frame, and I'm going to hopefully remedy that. The whole thing doesn't hit, just the corner of the frame. So I'm pretty sure I can do something with that to make sure it's not hitting, and go from there. So for now, that's it. And all I'm going to keep doing is just keep sanding and prepping and fixing. Nothing major anymore, I hope. And before you know it, it'll be coming apart. That's what I wanted to do today, but because I got to put the nose back together, I can't take it apart. So once I'm done with the firewall and doing all that, I'm going to start putting the hood back together, so that Monday morning, first thing, I can assess and how the latches are going to go on. So that's pretty much that. And most likely, even though today's Friday and I don't work on clients' cars on Saturday and Sunday, this video won't show until Thursday of next week, because I just don't have enough content from what I was doing to this on Thursday and today. So pretty much that. You'll have to wait till next week to see it, but I will show progress that I've done on that car, and you really won't know that until you see this on Thursday. So until then, hang tight and peace out. Alright, well, it's been a couple of days, and it is still about the 33 Dodge Coupe, 5-window. Been doing a lot of prep work now, finally, sanding, getting things ready for a little more primer in areas where it's needed, and at the same time covering things, so I only have to cover it once as far as taping and papering it off. And I got to inspect the trunk lid, and so far so good. I don't see anything horrible on that. And I did have to fix something on the right door, because it's part of the door jamb towards the hinge side of the jamb. I don't know, when they chopped whatever, it was rubbing the paint off. So hopefully I did enough work to it to clear the closing and opening of the door after the new paint is on there. I believe time will tell for sure. At least I did address it, and worst case scenario, it kind of was doing what it was doing before, but I try to eliminate that type of stuff so that it lasts longer. So I'm going to take you around the car and show you what I did and talk about a couple of things that are, as far as parts that are received for the hood, and unfortunately they didn't do a 90-degree angle, the latches. So the client took them back and sent me some pictures of ones that we believe will work for the car, and then go from there. So let me take you over to the car, show you what's going on. Right there is the spot I was talking about when it came to the area where it was rubbing here. You can actually, when I was opening and closing the door, I kind of felt it first seeing it, and then I went in here and cleaned it up a lot, and then tried to basically reform it a little bit, and so far it worked. I noticed that there was a tag here, and they took it from here and they moved it over there, which is fine. That's what they want to do. So a little more prep around the door jamb is done, so it's ready for some primer. I keep holding off on putting the primer on the car only because a couple of more pieces that I'm going to be making. Left this up because you can see that the underneath the hood has been prepped, sanded, and all that stuff. And I'm going to make some reinforcement plates to go underneath this front here so that when these bars are attached to it, there's a little more strength to it. So that's my plan, and then I want to, prime those pieces, and they'll be painted separately. And then this fender here is ready for the primer all the way down to the running board and so forth. And I actually cut the piping out of the way so I can get in there and sand better. But once it's primed, then I got to sand it again. So still prepping, but at least I won't have to re-prep all this other stuff, only where I put the primer. So I started on this fender some, and I addressed the left side some more just to make sure that it was sanded before I prime it again. And you can see I even went a little further on sanding the top side of the hood. I believe it needed it, and then I taped and papered off with some heavier paper the top, so now I won't have to deal with it at all. It's ready for even when it gets painted. And I covered this back piece here because I got to get some primer in here on these spots here, because I did have to clean it up to make a nicer body line. And that's all ready. That's ready down there for some primer. So I either going to, oh yeah, I did something on the right side door. Let me show you that. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was hit. I don't remember the damage of it, but there was primer there, and I think just to fill it in, and then it seemed like it was busted up. So I ground it, and then I put a thin layer of filler over it so I can block it flat and smooth it, make it even again before the primer goes in on that side. So it's moving along. Even taped up the antenna. I did not want to try to disassemble it. Too much stuff in there to get in the way and spend way too much time to get it out of there. So as you can see, the deck is shut. No, not all the way, but enough for me to do an inspection on it. And other than just taking the DA over it, I don't really see anything yet that tells me otherwise. I will end up taking the handle off because there is no latch for it anyway. We do have to find one. And then eventually I will get the taillights out. So once those hood latches come and I can do whatever it takes to make them work, then I'll be able to, because I gotta end up drilling holes, no doubt, for it. I know somehow, some way I'm gonna have to fasten them here, and plus a latch. So whatever I come up with, even if I have to, these two holes right here, or actually 3 holes, are for the radiator housing. So maybe I can incorporate a spot maybe just before that, or depending on how long the latch is, be able to come out with something that looks pretty nice and bolt it to this so that the hood could latch and pull this in. So that's the game plan on that. And then once that's done, then I can take this whole assembly back off and finish prepping all this stuff and just move along. So hopefully tomorrow I'll have a real productive today. I think today was really productive. Got a lot of sanding done, even more prep and tape and paper. So as you can see there on the doorway and on the top. So if I keep having days like this where nothing slows me down, then it'll get done a little quicker then. So that's what I'm hoping for. So until tomorrow, peace out. Oh, it's the next day I'm back. Actually, at it again, which is 33 window coupe. And as you can see, I got more things papered and taped off. And also, we decided to cover all that. So try to minimize the overspray going in the door because there are solenoids and some other items in there that I really didn't want to get any paint on there. And I even snuck some paper down in there up and over the glass, even though that's easy enough to clean. And then I just finished that off with a little light filler to even it up. That little so-called back glass is covered, and I have the tail lights finally out, as you can see on both sides. Yeah, this side's finished with it being enclosed off. Same thing with the door. So after I have my lunch, and it is that time, I'm going to continue on sanding and get this over with. And hopefully soon enough some of them components will show up. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep going. I really do want to spray the primer, but I'm going to wait until I put those parts on there. This way, any holes that I drill and the little plates I'm going to make for there, they'll be able to get primed as well and not have to mix up a little batch for such a small amount. Oh, I even covered inside the vent, even though it's going to be sealed off permanently, but I didn't want any overspray or paint getting down there because it would end up inside the cabin. Now here's the cover, and I also got to sand the mirrors, the little holders for the headlights. But here is this. I got to prep that too. Yep. So that's the screw. Well, it's the next day. I wanted to show something because maybe some people going to see it in other videos or the finer details of how long it actually takes to prep a car like this. This is a 33 5 minute coupe. I mentioned many times. But even gets to the point where I got to put my little CNN goggles on, and I was definitely a little bit of a lesson. Hopefully you can see the orange here. Yeah, I can see it through the camera. So right around here, even though it's been sanded, it's not, in my mind, it's not good enough. It needs to be better. I want it flat. I want it to look like this right here. Flat, smooth, even. So I'll make sure that it turns out that way. And depending on how you use your block, this one's a little more foamier. It flexes better. And that's kind of what I think I need to get around these curves. You know, and you just make sure that you work with it and go in the direction so that this way, you know, you're sanding it, I think, properly. That's all. Just my opinion. I see spots I don't like, and I just go over it. I just want to make sure that I'm hitting these spots and even taking the block, because I have paper coming up the side for these reasons here to help me sand out these grooves. See, and I know you can see the grooves now that I have this side shot and what it, you know, what it all entails. And the same thing with the quarter right here. You got to hit all of this on both sides, and then you got to hit this line up here because it's got a raise to it, and you know, you just got to keep going. And then, oh, you're not done there. You got to get this side of the trunk, the jam. So this is tough to get in here. There's not a whole lot of room. So you're getting on this side here. Then you got to get the bottom side where the screws are. And then you got to get that side that creates the lip. And then you got to get this side. So all the outside stuff you can get with the block, and that'll go at a fair amount of time. It's a good thing I'm not painting underneath this trunk deck, but I do have to get this edge right here and some of this edge right here, because once the covering goes on there, what they use to make a nice panel inside, I want to make sure that the color that I spray on here wraps around in there far enough so that if that cover that they made just doesn't fit 100% perfect, you'll see a nice finish. So you got to do this, you got to do that going up, then you got to do this side going in that way, and then obviously the outside. So all of that extra sanding and all that extra time to get this one corner, it's just time, and it's all the way around the whole thing. That's right, all the way around, and then you got to try your best to get the backside, which I hadn't even ventured into that yet. So what'll end up happening is when I'm done with the surface, all on the outside and everything I'm going to do around, that area will be saved for last because I will remove the trunk deck right out. And before I do that, a little tip. I will actually drill a hole in this hinge right here into that panel to where I can put a pin in it and do the same thing on that side, because the trunk deck seems to line up pretty nice all the way around when it's closed. I want to make sure that I duplicate that when I put the trunk deck back on after it's painted. To make that happen, when the hole is drilled and you can put a pin in there, and this side as well as that side, you know you lined up your trunk deck on the hinge properly. So that's a little tip right there for you that will help you, and it'll be painted, so it's not like it's going to be a problem where it's going to rust or something. But as I'm looking around, I notice this little spot right here, and then I notice that little right there. It could be a little flatter. So while it's on my mind, I will turn my fingers one way or another in the sandpaper so that I don't create a finger groove in it, and just kind of circle around it and hope that I clean it up real quick. And as far as I can tell, it is. But I just thought I'd give a little, couple minute lesson on what it takes to make all this sanding and the prep work, what it takes to make it possible for hopefully a real nice paint job. Because it does take time. And don't forget, I still got to do the door jam on both sides. The door jam, the door itself jam, and I got to get where the actual A pillar meets the B pillar, all the way around, up and around. All that silliness has got to be sanded, and that all is done by hand. You're not really getting in there with the DA. It doesn't work. It's not effective. So I thought I would scoop you in on that because there's so much of it all over this car. It's on the windshield. All that trim right there had to be sanded, and the little edge that creates through the glass had to be sanded, and then even all the nooks and cranny where the vent is, I had to sand it. All that takes so much more time. It just seems like it's never ending. Like you're never gonna get done sanding the car. I mean, really, it's that tedious. That tedious and that time consuming when that takes place. It's a lot. Believe it or not. You also tell me sometimes, you'll just come on, know exactly what we're all talking about when it comes to sanding the car. Now, bigger stuff and newer stuff don't have all these nice creative bottom lines. They don't have that. So you can get away with using the GA or the little small 6-inch block sander. Because apparently this one here is a little smaller and it's flatter, it's firm, and that's usually the case where if you're doing something that you need to make sure that it ends up being flat. And then you've got a bigger one. This one I think is 6.5 inches, and by the standard 2 and 3/4, all of them as far as width wise are the same. Okay, different block companies, they produce whatever. Cars like this, you really don't use those real long stuff. You don't have to. You can get away with using the smaller stuff, and the DAs you know how to use them. So I'm telling you, this is no fun because it just takes so long. And then knowing that I already primed it, all you gotta do is take the primer on it again because it needs it, over here at the door. Well, I'm gonna be sanding it again. So it's just countless times. It's ridiculous. So I'll be moving on, and once I've got a lot more done, or in the stage where I'm going to do the priming, I'll be waiting to do that. Just so I tune in, and hopefully you got a real good idea on what it takes. So until the next one, stand by. I'm back, and I just received about an hour ago the hood latches, the right ones this time, and these definitely will work. And I've actually already have made one piece, and I'll duplicate it to the other side. This was my cardboard template. Yep. And it's going to mount on the outside of the radiator cloud housing support, and I'm bolting it up in show you close up. Alright, so now it's latched. Little side profile. Yep. See, so this thing pivots every which way, and that's what it looks like that. So I will mark this piece of steel here with my same cardboard template. Obviously it's just reversed. So that side right there, it doesn't matter because the thickness is the same. And then I'll do the same thing for this side over here. Use that hole is what I pointed out. And the same thing right there. And then the bottom one will be regular with that style hardware right there. Hopefully you can see that. But that's how I wanted to show that. And now that I have these and I'm making it so where it's going to work nice, then my next piece I'm going to make is all going to be reinforcing the bar area with a little bit different, little thinner piece of steel than that one there. I want to be able to form it just right because there is a curve to it, as you can see. And because it is right there, it's going to have a curve. So it's got to be a little thinner. Most likely a 16 gauge. That'll be enough to add more strength. That's the scoop. So until I do that part, I figured I'd show you this part. So stand by for the next one. Alright, I'm back. And I got to do a little bit more fabricating. Gives me a big break from sanding. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing. My good side is open. And I'm going to start doing the right side. So let me get you focused in. Alright, you've already seen this already. So as I explained, I was going to put a strip of metal underneath and follow the curvature underneath, and to make that section where the support rod bolts to, make it stronger. So that piece is in, and this hardware is what's going to go here, but showing this hardware isn't going to stay there. It's just to have it fitted, just to make sure, and the same with the piece up above. Close this up. Now I'm going to open up this side, show you the beginnings of it. Ah, we're missing a nut on that side. Isn't that lovely? We'll see how. Maybe the vibrations, but the metal's buried underneath the tools here. I won't need them until a moment later. So this flat steel, 16 gauge, it's workable and it's strong at the same time. And I'll start at the same place I started the other one up here at this recessed hole. So once I drill it, I could countersink it because it goes underneath. And then it'll wrap around and it'll end somewhere over in here. So that's my plan. That will be done. And once it's done, it'll look like that side. There you go. There's another view of it. And this is going to come off next so I can clamp that on and start going to town. And being that this now will be finished and being mocked up, I could take it all apart, start taking the front fenders off, get them out of my way, and go from there. But being that I'm more than halfway around, considering this side is sanded, 3/4 of the running board is sanded, most likely finish sanding the rest of it, come around, and then start taking it apart. But I believe this is going to end this video. I believe I have enough stuff to show anyway, at least. And there it is behind me. But that's it for this segment. Tomorrow I'll actually start
Thursday. And I don't know what kind of response I got from the custom bike that I posted, but once again, it is for sale. You can always make a comment if you're interested. But going forward, I do appreciate people watching. And as it's always said,